Turns out Louisiana's Attorney General is holding flood money for the city of New Orleans hostage until the city enforces the state's total abortion ban. Yeah, that was just a headline from hell, isn't it? Just leading with that. Louisiana Attorney General Jeff Landry successfully urged the Louisiana Bond Commission on Thursday to delay $39 million of future credit for New Orleans Sewerage and Water Board, which the city needs for its flood response, until the city officials agree to enforce the state's abortion ban, which is awful. The move, of course, comes right at the start of hurricane season. On the same day, New Orleans has issued a flood advisory. Remember, we're like, whatever it is, however many years out from Hurricane Katrina, happened on August 25th, 2005. This is hurricane season, y'all. This is hurricane season, and that is insanely dangerous to do this. The financing that's being held hostage would specifically be used to build a power station for the Sewerage and Water Board to help combat flooding. Melinda Deslatte, a research director at Public Affairs Research Council of Louisiana, live tweeted today's meeting in which Republican politicians decided to punish New Orleans, a Democratic stronghold in the state, for defending abortion rights in the wake of a near total ban. Fun, that's great. So they need this money. This is important for the city to protect itself from hurricanes, which are getting worse and worse every year. But why are they so mad at New Orleans and city officials and folks who are there? Why is this happening? Well, it turns out that actually New Orleans has been standing up to its own state's abortion ban. And this is something that I hadn't heard and something we should all be paying attention to, which is that they're refusing to comply. So the New Orleans City Council passed a resolution unanimously that would prevent city entities from enforcing Louisiana's abortion trigger laws. The resolution calls for no city funds to be used to catalog or report abortion cases. The resolution also calls for no penalties against abortion doctors or patients. That's not all. What about the police department? Well, turns out, even though in 2005, the NOLA Police Department, terrible entity, horrible, seems like they're making up for it today because the New Orleans Police Department will not enforce Louisiana's law, banning and criminalizing most abortions. Officers will not issue summons, make arrests, or otherwise enforce violations related to state laws prohibiting abortion, a police department statement says. The city of New Orleans recognizes the reproductive rights. This is from the resolution, and human rights, embraces the tenets of equality, dignity, autonomy, access to critical healthcare information, bodily integrity, and respect for private life with the highest attainable standard of health, including sexual and reproductive health without discrimination, as well as the right to freedom from cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. And that is from that New Orleans City Council resolution. It is a fascinating clash between city and state officials, and also for me, a roadmap for where other red states, cities in red states, can go when it comes to pushing back against their own state's abortion bans. Erin, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, my first question reading this story and looking into it was how much of the state's total revenue comes from New Orleans? Like, is it cutting off its nose to spite its face? Because I believe that the state making New Orleans more likely to suffer from terrible flooding really could end up hurting the state overall. I mean, I don't have numbers in front of me, but judging by how much revenue cities generate versus places where there aren't people and commerce, et cetera, and the huge size of tourism and in New Orleans and the huge amount of tax revenue generated by all of the commerce activity in the city, seems like a bad idea. Seems like some really stupid posturing without a lot of foresight. And at the end, everybody is going to end up worse off and nobody will have gotten what they wanted. So, right. I mean, is that really a good strategy when it comes to governing a state that has a diverse population, both ideologically and socioeconomically? Probably not, not. This seems like a really, really bad idea. And it sort of reminds me of, sometimes you see, red state chatter about how terrible California is and how California should secede and become its own country. It's like, okay, You want to know what that would look like?
Yeah.
Okay. It's I think there's just a complete lack of foresight in favor of just projecting this air of toughness and preserving one's pride, and I don't think it's going to turn out well for anybody involved.
No, and I mean, what's interesting more broadly about the abortion rights, I mean, the fact that Roe v. Wade has been overturned and in my opinion, the false argument that this belongs to the states is that what happens when you do that is you create a fractious nation and friction with inside states themselves, right? Depending, so it's like county versus county now. I'm just glad that they're actually pushing back, but here you have flood money, $39 million being upheld or withheld until they comply. And for a city like New Orleans, I can imagine that is gonna sway a lot of people, maybe Republican city council members, maybe Democrats who are like, look, I agree in in theory that we should be standing on the side of reproductive rights, but we need this hurricane money. And if heaven forbid there is another, whatever, category 4 or 5 horrible hurricane, which there will be something this season. Maybe it won't, claim the amount of lives that Hurricane Katrina did. Very quickly, those folks are gonna be needing that money. So I think it's insanely dangerous and insane how Louisianans are being pitted against one another. I just wanna go to the state senator, Jimmy Harris, who is a Democrat from New Orleans, who's pointing out that in the meeting that when the Bond Commission first delayed these funds in July, there was actual flood water in the streets. The power plan, he said, is expected to protect an estimated 384,000 people. So again, this is much needed aid, and like everything Republicans do, they're upholding it not for the benefit of the people, but for their ideological lines to punish folks and say, oh, you don't like this, hey, we're not gonna vote for our vets bill that we voted for a few months ago. Remember that, causing Jon Stewart to flip out, rightfully so. They're like, no, we don't want to do it. We don't want to do it anymore because we can't take this loss/win this week. Republicans all got on board with that. They eventually did sign the agreement, but it's the same thing. They will uphold money in order to try and cajole others and to hold them hostage.
Yeah, what's really interesting about this is I think right after Dobbs came down on June 24th, there was some talk about like, oh, we're Republicans, the dog that caught the car. And it does seem, we don't know for sure. We know that the effects on real people's lives have been devastating. There is a woman in Louisiana who is being forced to carry to term a completely non-viable fetus. She must go out of state in order to get the health care that she needs because the state's new abortion ban is draconian. But there are states right now where there are signs that voters won't take this. Kansas, for example, I don't like to extrapolate national implications from just, a Great Plains state that just had like an off-year election. Kansas just had record turnout for a primary because it put abortion up to a vote. And people in Kansas weren't cool with that. Kind of preliminary data we have on voter registration in other states that are purple to leaning red, like Wisconsin and Michigan, are showing women are out registering men to vote in those states. In places where abortion is not on the ballot, it's about even keel. So I think that in places like Louisiana, the immediate harm that is done to the people that live in Louisiana cannot be understated. But the long-term harm that Republicans and conservatives are doing to their aspirations of holding on to power, I feel like that's something that's coming down the pike. And when it gets here, they're not gonna like it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is insane. You've got a woman who's got an unviable fetus. She can't get an abortion. What happens if she dies in a flood then? This is the same kind of, we're putting her at risk anyway.
Right.
We're putting all the people, everyone at risk.
What's more pro-life than drowning a pregnant woman,
Hey, just to prove a point.
Yeah.
Republicans will go there.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.